Really? What? You just hordered me. You just hordered me so bad. How non-prepared and unorganized we are sometimes upsets me. It's my favorite segment of the week. It's Crossing the Streams on Chad Dukes versus the World. Generally, we take you through video games, we take you through movies, we take you through TV. But with what Marvel did yesterday, I think we all know what we have to discuss today. That's right, we are dedicated.
I'm Groot.
Is that it?
I'm Groot.
Joining me on the WatchChadDukes.com hotline, Scott Kalura, who is the senior editor for IGN Movies, to talk about the Phase 3 reveal. Scott, thank you so much for making the time today, buddy. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Chad. I'm just sitting here in my Rocket Raccoon costume. I'm so excited about these announcements.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were dressing up yesterday. All right, so let's go through it just real quickly. You got Age of Ultron coming out next year. You have Ant-Man in 2015. Then you have Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War Parts 1 and 2, Captain Marvel, and the Inhumans.
Crazy.
Have we ever seen, I know DC just did their big rollout, but I'm sorry, you're going to have to prove to me that you have this type of consistency. Have we ever seen anything like this in the history of cinema?
No, I don't think we ever have. And the thing with Marvel is we keep saying that about Marvel. They keep outdoing what they've already done. Like this is Phase 3 that they just announced of their films. With Phase 1, we felt like we'd never seen that before. Phase 2 grew it out, and now Phase 3 is just like insane. They've increased the amount of movies that are coming out each year, the types of characters. It's just something to behold.
I do a sports talk radio show, so when you're talking about the audiences, Scott, they're a little different, but you're talking about mainstream audiences that are buying into this. Clearly, you and I are going to be there with no pants on every single time, but they've done a miraculous job of taking characters that I don't think many people have heard of and making them interested in them and making them kind of buy into these universes. How has that been accomplished? How do you think they're going about that?
Well, yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's hard to remember this now, but there was a time when we thought that Thor and Captain America, guys like that, might not even work out, actually. But they've been very careful about how they've done each film. They've been very smart in who they've casted, who they've hired to write the films and direct them. They've made really good movies. And then they've also made films that are very sort of specific genres. You know, the first Captain America movie was also a World War II movie, and Thor was like a Lord of the Rings type fantasy for half of the film. So they don't just do superhero stuff. They really kind of try to hit all the genres as well. And I think that's one of the reasons that the films are so appealing. And we see that moving forward in these new announcements, even in terms of the types of characters. You know, we're going to get the first black superhero with Black Panther, and we're getting a female-led superhero with Captain Marvel as well. So they just keep identifying types of audiences, I think, and that just brings in more and more bucks for them.
It's at Scott Kalura, at Scott IGN on Twitter, at Scott IGN for Scott Kalura's Twitter. What types of monies are we talking about here? Like, how many billions of dollars? I can't imagine that the bubble is going to burst because, quite frankly, the Guardians of the Galaxy is the biggest one they've ever done. It just seems to me that this is the new action movie. It's taken the genre past where action movies ever did, even at the height of Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, their popularity. What are the monies that we're talking about here, Scott?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, with just one of these movies, they can make over $1 billion. An Iron Man movie will bring in over $1 billion. So Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, recently hit I believe it was $800 million, and that's for a film that everyone thought was such an unsure quantity. It was like, who are these guys? We're talking raccoon, a tree that walks around, you know, and yet they made it work. So, I mean, for each movie, you're talking about $500,000 to over $1 billion. And then when you put the characters together in an Avengers movie, forget about it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's fun to see this stuff come to fruition. It's a fun time if you've been a fan of these characters and this type of material for your whole life to see them, you know, portrayed in the big screen. And I think we're all enjoying it. Scott, thank you very much for the time, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Absolutely. Ethan Anderton, managing editor for FirstShowing.net, One of my buddies that I know is excited about this whole thing joins me next. Ethan, I saw you were as jacked up as I was. Talk with me about the selections they've made, the Black Panther, Inhumans, Captain Marvel. Those are all characters that I'm guessing most people are not familiar with unless they're dorks like you or I. And kind of quizzically, we don't see an Iron Man 4 announcement or an Incredible Hulk movie. Do you still have faith that all of these are going to be as successful as the movies that have come previously from Disney and Marvel's collaboration?
As it is right now, I mean, I have faith in Marvel. They've done something amazing with the comic book genre so far in that they've ushered in a new era of comic book movies where they're all tied together. They've created the comic book universe that has always existed on the page and put it on the big screen. And it's kind of the point that audiences are just excited if it's a Marvel movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, you guys were just talking about, and people turned out to that, and that's a pretty obscure property that no one really knew about, and it's something that has a lot of weird elements. You know, it's a big talking tree and a talking raccoon, and so now Marvel's starting to dig into the characters that people know less of, and they're going to turn them, hopefully, into movies that are just as big as what Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America became. And this lineup's really interesting.
How long do you think they'll be able to keep Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. around? Like, when are they going to start to transition into this newer group? As you know, these guys have been in 4, 5, 6, 7 movies now, kind of involved in these franchises.
I think that's definitely what Phase 3 is going to be about. Kevin Feige, the head honcho at Marvel, recently confirmed that the Avengers team that we'll see at the end of Age of Ultron will be different than the original Avengers squad we've seen. So we might see Thor and Captain America sit out for 1 or 2 movies, especially since the next Avengers movie, Infinity War, is being split into 2. We might see a new team in the first part, and then the second movie might require all the original guys to come back too to fight the threat that Thanos will become when he gets a hold of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Now, I'm not going to be critical because I'm with you, Ethan. I'm going to trust them in everything they've done because some criticisms for Iron Man 2 and 3 aside, I think they've just done a really good job of making good movies that just happen to be superhero movies. But when you look at making all these announcements and getting people all jazzed up for the next 2 Avengers movies, are we kind of overshadowing Age of Ultron?
No, not at all. I mean, it's the teaser trailer, when it leaked, was a huge thing. Everyone was all over it, and it forced Marvel's hand to release it officially a week early. So, I mean, Avengers it has the potential and most likely will be the biggest Marvel movie that the studio has produced. And the Avengers movies are only, I think, going to get bigger as Marvel keeps building momentum with their individual franchises. There's no doubt that Age of Ultron is going to be one of the biggest movies of 2015, and so I don't think there's any worry whatsoever about this new lineup overshadowing that, just because, I mean, everyone's going to be excited no matter what.
Certainly are. When you look at the new faces that we're going to see, which one are you the least confident in, and which one are you the most confident in when you look at Black Panther, Inhumans, and the Captain Marvel movies?
It's tough to say. I feel like Inhumans has some big hurdles to overcome. Inhumans has a really big, massive mythology, and I think it's going to take a lot to get people interested in that. But at the same time, it's also a property that has so much background, and mythology that you can do anything with the property and almost launch even more individual franchises. Now that we're starting to get a little bit more diversity in Marvel, there might be some resistance from certain audiences as seeing a female-led Marvel movie, or Black Panther with Chadwick Boseman having the first African-American-led Marvel movie. But at the same time, they come with the Marvel branding. So with the support behind it, I don't think that you're going to have a hard time bringing audiences of any race, gender, whatever into the theaters to get to see those movies. So people can be skeptical, but I think that Marvel knows exactly what they're doing.
I think so too. It's at Ethan_Anderton on Twitter. Follow him, and firstshowing.net on the webs. Ethan, thank you, buddy.
Thanks a lot.
Finally, entertainment editor for IGN, Roth Cornett, joins me. And Roth, the excitement level yesterday, I mean, you cover this stuff for a living. You've been through a lot of big reveals, but I honestly thought there were going to be people stroking out and having a heart attack. Have you ever seen anything like the reception? Again, no disrespect to DC announcing all those movies, but they're going to have to show it to us. Everybody already knows what Marvel and Disney can do. Can you compare it to anything you've seen before?
I can't. You know, it was really funny because it was total mayhem in our office. It was like as if like this was the moment. This is what we've trained for, people. You know, like all hands on deck. And we were talking about the different ways that we and people in general were responding to the two announcements. I thought the DC announcement was a big deal, but they did it at a shareholders meeting, and so it felt less significant.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Marvel really put on a great show, and they know how to galvanize their fan base, you know. And it was exciting. It was exciting for us. You felt like you were part of a big event.
Yeah. What did you make of the teaser trailer for the Infinity War when you had Thanos standing there with the Infinity Gauntlet?
Awesome.
Yeah. It was awesome.
I mean, that's the other thing is that they were showing footage too, you know, and so that was exciting. And the trailer had just come out. Which I love that trailer. I mean, I think I loved Avengers, and I hope that I will love this film, and I think I will because it's Joss Whedon. But whatever the case, that trailer is amazing.
I've asked this. I think I've asked this to you before, and it seems more relevant now. Do you see there being a breaking point? Do you see an oversaturation coming? There's so many movies now. We're gonna get multiple per year, and I know they all make a pile of money, but at any point do you think people are going to grow weary of the superhero genre, because it certainly hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, that's something that we actually talk about a lot, because if you look at every different studio, I think it's something like 22 movies in the next, it really actually maybe more than that, so forgive me if this number is wrong, but upwards of 20 movies over the next several years that are all superhero movies from the different studios. And so, yeah, I do think that there is going to start to be a concern about that. I think if you look at genre, and then to add in the TV shows too, right? So if you look at different genres, like Westerns had a huge heyday, and they did for like 50 years, from the 20s into the 70s, and they had a peak. I think we're in the peak of the superhero phase right now with movies. And I don't know when the decline will happen, but probably another 10 years we have.
It's at Roth Cornett on Twitter. That's a great point. Great comparison as well, because, I mean, you barely see Westerns any longer, but for the time, that was the principal way people went to go see film. Last question I have for you is that, look, let's take all, whether or not, you know, rights out of this, whether or not people are being discriminated against, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's a debate that I don't want to have because this is a fun announcement, but how smart is it, just from a marketing point of view, that they are going to have a female lead in a Marvel superhero movie, and it's not She-Hulk, it's not She-Thor, it's Captain Marvel. Then you have an African-American protagonist in the Black Panther. That's, you know, been neglected for the most part in a lot of these movies, and I think that it's very savvy of Marvel to realize that there's other demographics out there they could potentially be accessing if they kind of broaden their perspective a little.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier, actually, with both, and DC, too, to their credit, by the way, with Wonder Woman and Cyborg. So I think it just is a matter of making a good movie. I truly do. I have enough faith in us, you know, and the world, and that we're all just interested in good stories, and that we connect with one another as human beings, because I certainly connect with the male characters. I connect with they don't have to be female for me to connect with them. And so, yeah, I think if you point out some movies that were failures, they weren't good movies. You know, and it had nothing to do with who was playing the lead role. They just were not good movies. I think if you make a good movie, people will go see it.
It's a great point. Just because Ryan Reynolds' dreamy ass was the Green Lantern didn't mean that everyone was just going to flock to it. I think you make a very valid point. Roth, we're all excited around here. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I always love it.
Yep, at Roth Cornett. Give her a follow. And Crossing the Streams Marvel Edition, favorite segment of the week, Chad Dukes versus the World.
Crossing the Streams every Wednesday.